Michelle Gansle, super excited to have you all here and very honored to be the only thing between you and cocktails. I mean, no pressure, no pressure. Believe it or not, I have actually been in marketing and market research for almost 20 years, and the last 8 of those have been the best because I've had the pleasure of working for Mars Wrigley. And so, I mean, who doesn't want to say they basically get paid to talk about gum and candy for a living? It's amazing. The other thing that's great about Mars is that they really encourage personal and people development, and I've gotten to do all kinds of awesome things like live in the Netherlands, work in all parts of marketing research. And I'm right now the head of consumer insights, but before then I was leading the shopper insights team. As a part of that, we did a learning workshop with our retailers where we were sharing with them the future of retail and how omni-channel is becoming more important. So that's what this is about. So for those of you who are expecting something around consumer and consumer research, that's not what this is. This is about the future of retail and the importance of omni-channel. Now I will tell you one little white lie. I said the future of retail, but actually all the cool examples I'm going to show you exist today. Like they're real world examples of things that are happening in the market, and what I'm hoping is that they will serve as inspiration for all of you of like how can we take these learnings and these trends and make that possible in our own reality. So before I get started, just a quick check. How many of you here work for a manufacturer? Raise your hand if you work for a manufacturer. So very little, like 20%. What about retailers? Any retailers in here? Okay, also suppliers? A lot of suppliers. Anything I miss? You don't work for, you land those? Okay, supplier. You go in the supplier, Matt. Don't be mean. All right, so I'm hoping that there's going to be takeaways for all of you. What we're going to do is I'm going to talk a little about trends and then show you some examples. Trends, examples, and that's the way the next 30-ish minutes are going to go. And then I thought we could maybe have a discussion at the end around what do we think this means for us. So let's get started. Okay, so there's going to be split up into 3 sections. I'm going to spend the majority of the time talking about lifestyle trends and focusing mostly on this trend of busyness and the need for seamlessness. And then I'm just going to quickly touch on some demographic changes that we're seeing, and especially around millennial attitudes around urbanization, gender, and multiculturalness. And then finally, I'm going to talk about personalization and customization. Okay, so lifestyle, and the focus really here is around disappearing downtime and the importance of seamlessness, that's harder to say than you'd imagine, and on-demand mindset. So, busyness. This is really interesting because I think we would all say that we're pretty busy people, right? Like the world of interconnectedness makes us feel busier and busier. Scary statistic, on average, Americans claim to only spend 18 minutes a day thinking or relaxing. So 18 minutes a day, very little amount of time. Hopefully you guys are doing a little bit more of that while you're at this conference, thinking and relaxing. And millennials especially feel like that half of millennials would say that over the last few years their work hours have increased, as opposed to us lazier Gen X and boomers who'd say only a third of us would agree with that statement. And what that's causing is we not only have less time, but more people are moving into cities. There's a rise of single-family households. There's also longer working hours, and all this is creating this need of multitasking and finding ways to not just save time, but also make up time. So anywhere we can help them make up time, that's what we're looking for. Another fun fact that I learned in this research is that more and more workers are saying that they feel like that sometimes they overstate how busy they are. So about 40% of people would say that, but 60% of people believe their coworkers are lying about how busy they are. So this group up here, they don't do that, but at least 60% of you are doing that. So a cool example of retailers or food services that are tapping into this urban, busy people and trying to make things a little bit easier. Does anyone live here in San Francisco? I don't know if you've been to this Eats Up, but it's a food service chain where you can either order on an app or on a kiosk, and then you pick it up from one of these little futuristic-looking windows. But what it does to help you save time is it learns your preferences over time and will start suggesting meals to you so that you can make that decision quicker. And so then you order it, you walk in, you pick it up, you're out the door. So this world of urbanization and multitasking is creating these convenience-driven cities. So convenience, that's probably been a trend for, 50 years, 100 years, but more and more people are claiming that convenience is key to their purchasing decisions. And so this need for convenience, those retailers who can capture this are really winning. Like the most iconic example, right, is Amazon One Click. By taking out the barrier path to purchase, they sell more. My own personal favorite is Starbucks. I probably 5 days a week spend $5 on coffee because I order it when I walk out the door. It takes me 5 minutes to get there. I pick it up and I'm gone. So this interesting intersection between how can you use omni-channel to create and both save time and create time for people is where the action's at, especially with millennials. And there's going to be a lot of millennial chatting going on in this conversation. But here's a cool example of Sephora. I have a huge heart for Sephora because they're really forward-thinking on how do you blend physical and digital together. This bigger picture that you see here is a very small footprint store in the middle of Paris it's a flagship store that they're trialing called Sephora Flash. And essentially, they have a very limited range of core cosmetic products that you can physically buy there. But what they have on the screens is the endless aisle of everything that's possible to buy at Sephora. And you can order it online, and they'll deliver it at your house the next day or deliver it at the store next day. They also have this cool app on the bottom right, so all you ladies pull out your iPhones and download this, Sephora to Go. You can, in the store, take a picture of a product, and it will give you ratings and reviews, but it will also pull up videos on how to use the product, or you can link to Sephora's Pinterest board if you're interested in that. So a really cool way of connecting digital with physical in order to delight and sell more. So the other thing that I've mentioned a few times is this idea of seamlessness, and what I mean by that is, regardless if you're shopping in-store, out-of-store, or some combination, consumers and shoppers think that that should be one seamless experience, and while that used to be a delighter, in today's world, that's an expectation. And in fact, The Economist found that consumers actually associate seamlessness with customer service. So more and more, the better you can do a job of this, the better they perceive the customer service being. So omnichannel truly is more than just a buzzword, but not only an expectation, but a way that you can capitalize on more dollars. And in this next section, I'll explain why that is. Okay, these next two examples are seriously my two favorite examples in the entire presentation. So if you're going to zone out, this is not the time to do that. Okay, this little thing is a company called Startup Density, and it's a sensor that retailers can put on top of their door, and it counts foot traffic. And the reason why that matters is you as a consumer shopper, let's say it's your favorite coffee shop, and you're really annoyed when you go in there and it's super busy and long lines or nowhere to sit down. It tells you how busy it is, so you know okay, maybe now is not a good time to go in there. Really cool. But also for a retailer, it helps them manage flow of people, how much labor to have, where are they busier, where are they slower. So there's a real win-win with this little density sensor that's not only giving the shopper consumers better customer service, but it's helping the retailer to maximize their dollars and their labor. Now, my most favorite example is this thing called the Charity Wait app. So I live in Chicago. It's a big city. Lots of popular restaurants have sometimes hour, 2-hour waits. What this does is let you skip the wait by donating to a charity that the restaurant associates with. So by doing that, you don't have to wait in that hour wait. You donate between $10 and $35. You skip to the next in line. Super cool. But not only does that make the person waiting in line at the restaurant happier, but they've also found that when they do that, they spend on average 30% more per check, and they're 2/3 more likely to come back to that restaurant. So what happens when everybody uses the app? You know, it's funny, I asked that same question. I don't know that it's caught on enough to do that, and probably not enough savvy app-using people for that to ever become a reality, but when it does, I'm sure they'll think of a workaround. But good question, and feel free to ask questions along the way. This is like informal fireside eat candy chat. Speaking of candy, who's enjoying the candy? Right? Yeah, you're welcome. Chew the gum too, we need to sell more Orbit. Okay, so this is really interesting. All of this idea of urbanization and convenience and this need for on-demand, the world of Uber has created this expectation, especially from younger consumers / shoppers, of having everything on demand. They expect anything I want should be available at any time I want with the push of a button. So believe it or not, there's an Uber for just about everything that you can imagine. Who hates doing laundry? Well, you can now download Washio app, and they'll come and do your laundry for you. Hungry and don't want to wait an hour for service? Now you have Radish and Sprig. In 10 minutes, you can have healthy food delivered to your door. And then my personal favorite, super annoying, I don't have a car, so I buy a lot of stuff online when you have to return it. Post offices are only open when I'm at work. I don't know why that is, but it's true, and it's annoying. So now I can go to Ship, SHYP, and they will come and pick it up and bring it to the post office for me. So literally, you can have anything anytime you want, and again, this is becoming more of an expectation. And that is also leading to this other expectation. Who here is doing anything in e-commerce? Anyone here in e-commerce? Well, guess what? Half of millennials believe that they should be able to order something and have it same day. And 50% of people who buy stuff online have said that the number one reason for abandoning that cart is because they don't have a suitable delivery option. And 2/3 of people, especially millennials, would say that they would be more likely to buy online if you offered them same day. So again, I mean, the same day, and now with Amazon now, it's becoming, eventually in things like these Uber apps, it's going to be expectation of an hour. So if you're not already figuring out same day, I would suggest working on that. And you might be saying, but Michelle, that's really complicated and expensive. I would say, I know. So there's really cool companies that have figured out how to partner with other companies to make this happen without building in that infrastructure. So Postmates is yet another example of Uberization. Essentially, they link with anything from like convenience stores to restaurants to department stores where you buy something and that person will go and pick it up and bring it to you wherever you are. Everlane is an e-retailer, and they've partnered with Postmates in San Francisco. If you buy at least 2 items, they will use Postmates to deliver it to you in under an hour. So that's a really cool example of how Everlane hasn't created this infrastructure themselves, but have figured out a way to partner with other organizations to make it happen. Another idea around this on-demand mindset is virtual assistants. So no longer do you have to be an executive to have your own personal assistant. Now you can have a virtual assistant. There's a bunch of different ones. Honestly, none of them are doing it that great, but there's a couple called like Magic and Go Butler. And let's say you want to have your laundry picked up or go order pizza for you or sit in line and wait for something. You can use Go Butler. You send them a text, and they'll go send someone to go do that for you and then keep you abreast of the situation. So lots of virtual assistant type apps out there that are starting to emerge to make it like TaskRabbit. Has anyone ever used TaskRabbit? That's like another one. I just recently bought a treadmill, and it came in a bunch of pieces, and I was like, I kind of just thought it was going to be like this one big thing, and it was really complicated to put together, so I got this dude off TaskRabbit, and in an hour and a half, he had it fixed. Oh, yeah. So along that same vein is concierge-type apps as well, and there's one called Operator that, for you ladies out there, you go to the mall, and it's like several different things you need, and they're either in different stores or different places of a store. You can send what you're looking for, and someone in the store will go and find it to make sure it's there or put it all in a room for you so you can go and try it on. It's, just an example of taking away hassle and saving time for you, and also it's a service that's both a delighter. Okay, well, we got through that fast. So that was the lifestyle section. I'm going to change tracks and talk about demographics. Is there anybody has burning questions on that first section before I move on? Okay. So this one was longer. This was a longer presentation, and I shortened this one way down because I thought the best examples are in the other 2 sections. So I'm really only going to share 1 key point here and 2 examples. But the biggest thing that's changing with especially younger consumer is how millennial and Gen Z's attitudes towards demographics. So more and more, they're identifying themselves not by their culture, race, sex, but by their interests, their habits, and their values. In fact, 50% of millennials believe today that gender is a spectrum, and it's not as binary as female and male, and that we should be treating them as such. And so some ways that comes to life is, for example, Benetton, they did this really cool advertisement in 5 key cities where they took the ethnic diversity of that city and put it through an algorithm, and then the output is like if all of the people of Milan had a baby, this is what the baby would look like. So it's cool. I mean, it's just basically, saying that Milan is not just Italian, but they're made up of different ethnicities, races, genders, etc. So I thought that was like really well done. And then probably a famous example that most of you might know is this Wholesome example. Do you remember this from a couple years ago? They did a series of advertising where they showed, like in this example, gay parents, or they showed interracial couples, or a single father. And the whole idea was to say, like, Wholesome can come in many packages. And when they did this, they saw 35,000 people increase in fans and like a 400% increase in searches for the brand. So I think this is a good example of what may have seemed risky but really resonated with their core audience. And I think, if I was just to say, like, for me, what the key takeaway is, I know, like, a lot of traditional research is we want to understand women versus men and different ethnicities, et cetera, and what this is, like, begging for is let's not think so binary, but let's think about how we focus on attitudes and shared truths and not just on demographics and old school ways of typing people. So I promised you that would be short, and it was. So now we're going to talk about the last, which is personalization and customization. And what you're probably thinking is, Michelle, this is the trend that's been around for 20 years, and so what could you possibly new have to tell me? And I will tell you that personalization is ever evolving, and with the younger consumer, this is more important than ever. And I think retailers have found really creative ways to capitalize on this, so I'll show you some of those examples. So first of all, who here would agree that personalization with your consumer is important? If you agree with that, raise your hand. Okay, so that's a really small group. You guys either above average or below average, but actually 90% of marketers agree with that statement, that personalization is important. And 100% of consumers agree with that, but 80% of consumers feel like the average brand does not do a very good job of that today. So while all marketers would say, yes, it's important, consumers are saying, well, you're not giving me what I'm looking for. And especially with millennials, they really believe they have a right to co-create. 81% of millennials would say, I want to have my opinion heard. So they really are begging to be a part of the process. And some companies who have understood this are doing this really well. Adidas has this new app where you can upload any picture from Instagram and they will print it on a shoe for you. That's like really cool. That's like a good Christmas holiday gift for those of you who still have something that you need to give. I think a really awesome example of co-creation in a really easy way. And the importance of customization, again, it is really hard, but it can be really powerful, and it doesn't have to be done in a really complicated way. There's ways that you can mass customize or mass personalize so that it makes the consumer shopper feel like you are hearing them, but not necessarily putting a ton of effort into it. And one example of that is UGG Store. This is in Washington, D.C. So I don't know if you can tell because I've got text on it, but the woman is standing on what they're calling the magic carpet. And when you put on shoes and you walk across that, on the digital screen, it's showing you information about the products, its availability, the price, what are the colors it comes in, et cetera. So that's a cool way of making them feel like it's a personal experience, but you're actually not doing anything, taking their data or doing anything personal. Another favorite example, an actual CPG example for those of you in the CPG world like me, is Oreos. Any Mondelez people here? Okay, good. Because I'm sort of making up this story. So what they did, do y'all remember this from last year? It was really cool. You could go onto their website, and they had like a black and white version of the pack, and you could color it in and write a personal message and send it as a gift. And what I love about this, I mean, if you think like staple food in most people's household, Oreo is it, right? But what they've done is not only elevated the brand experience and the amount of time you're spending with the brand, but they've also created this thing that you can give as like a premium gift, and it's something as basic as Oreos. So love this example of something that they did as a limited time to get both a lot of buzz and maybe a lot of sales. I don't actually know how well it did, but thought it was a cool example. And then, I mentioned to you early, these millennials really want to have their opinion heard, but you know whose opinion they care most about is each other's. So the importance of peer reviews becomes more and more important. I saw, I don't know if any of you saw Christopher from Brand Trust speak, but he was talking the same thing, like the importance of ratings and reviews and how companies don't capitalize on this enough. And this is something that they care a lot about, and if you are able to capitalize on this, you can increase sales if you can get the peer network going. And one company who has figured this out is Lancome. They have this thing called social rewards, and the way it works is like when you buy products, you get points. So let's say you buy mascara, you get like 10 points, but if you share it on social media, you can get 25 to 50 points. So they're rewarding you and incentivizing you for sharing even over physically buying the product because they recognize how important that social network is and how that can have like a threefold effect. So really cool example of something that's super easy to do. It doesn't cost them any money, and you can get that social peer network activated. Okay, so guys, I like burned through that. It's only 25 minutes, which is good. We have a lot of time for either chatting or for early drinking. So I'm going to wrap it up with 3 big picture messages. Number 1, I think as I drilled insufficiently, younger shoppers have new needs, and you need to think of them differently and figure out where possible, how can you be accessible to them in any channel, anywhere, at any time, not only to free up their day, but to save their time and be more relevant. And then the next big takeaway, which I kind of already talked about, was this idea of how can we break free of demographic-based marketing and marketing research and think more about truths, shared values, shared interests, and this kind of multicultural melting pot rather than thinking about targeted marketing. And then the last one is, as we all know, it's really important to customize and personalize, but how can you think differently about ways that you can do this in a cost-effective way to not only boost engagement, but create more loyalty? So that's it.